The Los Angeles Clippers are the NBA's biggest dark horse. So far early on into the season, the Clippers have been playing decently well. When you look at their actual roster, it's littered with talent. They have their top end stars like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and now more recently Russell Westbrook if you still consider him that, but they also have a ton of talented supplementary guys on the roster like Norman Powell and others. And in my opinion, when you look at this Clippers roster, I do consider them one of the more deep teams in the NBA. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicySports. I make opinionated NBA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. I also want to quickly mention that I recently started up an MMA channel, and if you guys are interested in that, the link will be in the description. But anyways, let's get into it. It seems like the Los Angeles Clippers have been one of the more talented teams in the NBA for some time now, really ever since they acquired both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. But unfortunately, even though they were one of the more talented teams in the NBA, they were never able to win an NBA championship or really get all that far in the playoffs in general. Now, of course, a big reason for why they weren't able to do so is injuries to Kawhi Leonard and even a little bit less so to Paul George. But even with that being said, they did have a few seasons where both of those guys were healthy for the most part, and they still weren't able to make it all that far, and of course they still weren't able to win an NBA championship. But even though the Clippers have had a lack of success ever since acquiring those two guys, I always see the Clippers each and every season as legitimate championship contenders. And the reason why I still see them as such, even though they haven't shown all that much over the years, is due to the fact that they just have an insane amount of talent on the roster. And it just seems like over the years, the Clippers are able to put better and better teams around their main two guys in PG and Kawhi Leonard. And this season is no different. I think the talent they have around those two guys are the best probably they've ever had. When you look at guys on the roster like Norman Powell, who's a very legitimate supplementary guy, and maybe even a little bit better than that to be honest. They also have Zubac, who in my opinion is a really good fit alongside their main two players, does a really nice job on the boards, does a really nice job down low, and even defensively. They have a guy in Marcus Morris who spreads the floor out pretty effectively, but also has the ability to score for himself at times. Nicholas Batum, a similar thing, could spread the floor but also create for himself. Eric Gordon, similar thing. Robert Covington, a legitimate 3-and-D guy. They just have a lot of different players that do a lot out there for them. And when you're looking for a championship team, the Clippers have all the makings of such. They have their top end talent, they have really good supplementary guys, and they even have players that can create for themselves when those two main guys aren't out there on the court. But now when you also consider the fact that the Clippers recently added Russell Westbrook to the roster, in theory it should make their team better. Now I made a video recently on why I thought it was a great move for the Lakers to move on from Russell Westbrook, and basically I went into a bunch of different points, but the main reason for why I thought so was I just never thought the combination of LeBron James and Russell Westbrook would work, and clearly over the couple years that they were together it didn't work out. But when you look at this Clippers roster, although I still don't think it's a perfect fit between Westbrook and Kawhi or Westbrook and Paul George, I think it's a much better fit than LeBron and Westbrook, because both guys, Kawhi and Paul George, have the ability to play off ball and hit that catch and shoot 3-point jump shot. Now obviously for both of those guys, they're going to need to have the ball in their hands a lot of the time, but just having the ability to play off ball at times would really help out Westbrook, and just give him the ability to create for himself or create for others and do what he does best and get downhill. And also the Clippers just added another guy who has the capability to put up a ton of points and score for himself and create for others for when both PG and Kawhi come out of the game. And honestly, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't hate the idea of putting Russell Westbrook off the bench and just playing with the second unit. At that point, he would have the ability to dominate against second unit players, but also at the same time, the offense would run through him, which in my opinion would be a huge benefit to him. But either way, I do think it's a much better fit than the Lakers. But when you look at the Clippers roster on the season, they have a 33-29 record, which makes them the 5th seed in the West, which is decent I would say, but I think in terms of their talent level, they should be a little bit better. And over the course of the season, I do think they're going to improve. And once it comes down to playoff time, I think they're probably going to be playing the best basketball of their season. But once it comes down to the playoffs, I think they're a very dangerous team for any team in the West and really any team in the league. You talk about some of the better teams in the Western Conference, like the Denver Nuggets, the Phoenix Suns, and even surprisingly the Sacramento Kings. I think the Clippers have the ability to beat all of those teams. I think they have the talent level to do so, and I think if their chemistry gets on the level that it should, once it comes down to playoff time, I think the Clippers will be able to hang with those guys easily. But with that being said, this has been something I've been saying for a long long time, ever since the Clippers acquired both PG and Kawhi. They always had a ton of talent on their roster, and I always thought they were legitimate championship contenders, but they were never able to get it done over the years. So I guess we'll see what happens once it comes down to playoff time. But now, the question is, what would be the determining factors for whether or not the Clippers are able to win a championship this season? Well, in my opinion, I think it comes down to a bunch of different factors, but the first and main factor that I want to touch upon is health. Now, of course, this is extremely important for any team in the NBA, but especially when you look at the Clippers, and more specifically when you look at Kawhi, who's been dealing with injuries a ton throughout his career, it's even more important. If the Clippers are able to stay healthy for the most part going into the playoffs, I think they have a legitimate chance to win a championship. But if they're not, for example, if a guy like Kawhi Leonard or Paul George or someone else important is injured, I think their chances of winning a championship significantly decrease. And if Kawhi Leonard is out in the playoffs, I think it's virtually zero. So going into the playoffs, it's extremely important that the Clippers manage their players well to make sure they don't get hurt. Now, obviously you can manage your players as much as you want, there's still an opportunity for them to get hurt, but the Clippers just need to get that probability of that happening as low as possible. But now, the next factor that I want to touch upon is coaching. Now, over the years, the Clippers have been extremely talented. I went over that a bunch of times in this video already. But the one issue that the Clippers have been having over the years is chemistry, and more specifically coaching. When you watch the Clippers out there, of course they have the ability to score at will, but once it comes down to clutch time, and once it comes down to playoff time, and the going gets a lot tougher, it seemed like the Clippers have had a much more difficult time to score than maybe some other teams. And a big reason for why that happened is the Clippers never had great chemistry, and more specifically, they never had great coaching. A great coach out there isn't everything, but when you add a great coach to an already very talented roster, that's when you take your team to the next level. Because a great coach would have the perfect plays to run in clutch situations when certain players aren't playing all that well, and just get easy buckets for his team. But when you watch the Clippers out there, especially in clutch time, it just seemed like they were never able to run the right plays, and they were never able to get easy buckets. Every bucket that they were able to get in clutch time was due to their best players hitting difficult shots. And that's not a formula that's going to win you an NBA championship or really get you all that far in the playoffs. Of course, the guys they have on the roster are talented enough to do that at times, but they're not going to be able to do it every single possession, so it's not really all that sustainable. So I think if the Clippers are able to improve their chemistry, and more specifically improve their coaching, I think they're going to have a much better chance at winning a championship this season or even in the future. But I certainly think that's a huge factor for why the Clippers weren't able to do much more in the past. But the last factor that I want to touch upon is their main guys just need to step up. I think if both Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are able to play very well at the same time in the playoffs, the Clippers would be very difficult to beat. But that's something the Clippers haven't been able to do over the years, so it's certainly a big what if. But I guess only time will tell what does end up happening with the Los Angeles Clippers. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think the Clippers are a legitimate dark horse to win the championship this season, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now. And until the next time, peace out, guys.